Welcome to tonight's explainer. Go ahead and ease into a quiet, comfortable space as we explore a pretty fascinating possibility. Just imagine a map of the world where the vast blue voids of the Pacific and Indian Oceans aren't just empty water, but are actually filled with forgotten emerald lands that simply no longer exist. Tonight, we're going to slowly peel back the layers of that map and look at what lies beneath.
So, settle in, let your breathing slow down a bit, and just allow yourself to drift. You know, we so often assume that the 5,000 or 6,000 years of our recorded history represents the entire unbroken story of human achievement. But I want to invite you to wonder about how much of our human story might actually be resting perfectly peacefully beneath the waves. If you're using this story to fall asleep, well, that's exactly why I make these. So get totally comfortable.
It brings us to a really profound mystery. What if we aren't the first? What if we're actually the seventh attempt of civilization to reach for the stars? We're taking a gentle journey back to a time when the Earth was geologically restless, following the echoes of lost homelands that mainstream history often prefers to just ignore. Let's explore these ancient stories together.
Part 1. Echoes of Lost Lands and the Ghost of Lemuria. Our journey actually begins in the warm embrace of the Indian Ocean. And surprisingly, the story of this forgotten motherland doesn't start with ancient mystics chanting in temples. It starts with a quiet, 19th-century scientific puzzle. Back in 1864, a British zoologist named Philip Sclater was literally just staring at a map, trying to figure out why lemur fossils appeared in both Madagascar and India, which are separated by thousands of miles of open water. His solution was a sunken continent he named Lemuria. Now, modern plate tectonics eventually provided a much simpler explanation, but that name and the idea itself, it took on a beautiful, dreamlike life of its own. Because even as science moved on from Sclater's sunken land bridge, this incredibly powerful idea deeply resonated with an older human memory. By the 1880s, mystical traditions had completely adopted Lemuria. They described it not just as a land bridge for animals, but as a home to a civilization of slender, ethereal beings who lived in profound harmony with their environment, understanding the gentle forces of nature that we, in our modern rush, have kind of forgotten.
Part 2. Mu, the motherland of the Pacific.
Drifting eastward now, leaving the Indian Ocean behind, we entered the vast, quiet expanse of the Pacific. And here, a different legend emerges from the deep, dark waters, the continent of Mu. Now, 64 million, that is a staggering number, right? But that represents the population that a British colonel named James Churchwarden claimed once lived on Mu. Just imagine it, 64 million souls living on a massive, peaceful continent stretching safely from the shores of Hawaii all the way down to Easter Island.
Churchwood said his story began in the 1880s when a Hindu priest supposedly showed him these ancient secret clay texts known as the Naukal tablets. According to his translations, Mu was the original motherland of all humanity. It was this tranquil source from which the great Egyptian, Sumerian, and Maya civilizations were born, just as mere colonies. Now, the tablets themselves remain a total mystery. They were never produced for public verification. But believers look to the unexplained, unified seafaring architecture scattered across the Pacific as the physical, lingering echoes of this great lost culture.
Part 3. The Sunken Tamil Legacy. Let's gracefully transition back across the globe to the warm, tropical waters of southern India. Here we find perhaps the most specific and detailed of all these traditions. The ancient Tamil texts speak reverently of a highly sophisticated lost land called Kumari Kandam, which they say reached far southward, stretching all the way toward the icy silence of Antarctica. And Kumari Kandam wasn't a primitive society. It was a land of great ports and centers of learning. It wasn't lost all at once in some sudden panic either. The ancient records state that the ocean simply rhythmically consumed the land in 3 separate, gentle but relentless stages. The final survivors supposedly fled north, carrying with them their beautiful language, their literature, and the quiet memory of a homeland that no longer appears on any modern map.
Part 4. Mysteries in the Deep.
Now, to some, these stories are merely myths, just distorted memories of a time when sea levels were in constant flux. But while myths fade like morning dreams, there are physical anomalies resting in the deep that kind of invite us to look a little closer and just wonder. Consider the sheer scale of what rests beneath the water. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan, divers have found massive stone formations with perfectly straight edges, right angles, and steps, estimated to be over 10,000 years old. That's older than the pyramids. And over at Non-Model in Micronesia, there's an artificial archipelago built on a coral reef with massive basalt logs, which local legends whisper were actually levitated into place. Why on earth would a small island population invest such staggering effort to build on a reef?
These submerged structures, along with the silent, watchful stone faces of Easter Island, strongly suggest a shared architectural language. They hint at a civilization that hummed along long before recorded history, one that measured time not in mere decades, but in grand, sweeping 26,000-year cycles. Honestly, immersing ourselves in this grand scale of deep time makes us realize just how safely tucked we are into the vast rhythmic breathing of the cosmos.
Part 5. The Reset and the Rhythmic Breathing of the Earth. So, what could possibly be powerful enough to erase an entire continent? Let's explore what triggers these ancient resets, but we're going to focus on the awe-inspiring natural cycles of our planet rather than any fear of the fall. The Earth, you see, breathes, and sometimes it takes a very deep breath. Our ancestors lived through immense shifts. 74,000 years ago, the Toba supereruption created a genetic bottleneck that we still carry in our DNA today. Then, roughly 12,800 years ago, during a period called the Younger Dryas, which was a sudden, brutal return to Ice Age conditions, evidence suggests a fragmented comet struck the northern ice sheets, temperatures plummeted, triggering massive meltwater pulses. Our ancestors watched their world change, and then, patiently, they just started again from zero.
400. That is how many feet the sea levels calmly but unstoppably rose during those meltwater pulses. Every coastal city, every river valley settlement, and every low-lying land bridge would have been wrapped in a blanket of water in the span of a single generation. The world was simply transformed, washed clean, and reset.
Part 6. Rest in the Stars. As we reach the end of our explainer tonight, lying here in the dark, we really don't find a story of tragedy, but one of incredible resilience. The forgotten motherland might be resting beneath thousands of feet of water, but its story is still written in our collective memory. Our ancestors didn't just survive, they remembered. They wrapped their warnings in beautiful, soothing myths of great floods and sunken worlds so that we wouldn't forget how precious and fragile civilization truly is. And your very existence tonight, the slow beating of your heart, is living proof of their success. Your own cells are proof that your ancestors were good enough at living and adapting to make it through the most profound shifts in history.
The cycle of the Earth just continues its slow, majestic turn. It does make you wonder, though, when the ice melts and the waters rise again thousands of years from now, what echoes of our world will be left resting quietly in the deep? You are a part of that great, unbroken story. The same stars that watched over Mu and Kumari Kandam are shining above you right now. You are perfectly safe,